Okay, so going to talk a little bit today, and I know this is many of you. I'm going to go through a couple questions here in a second. I know many of you are solopreneurs, and a few of you work, and many of us have worked in corporate America. I did 30 years in corporate America before 15 years of small business activity. But we're going to talk today a little bit about the difference strategic planning can make for all of us, not just corporations, but for each of us that are out there working on a day in and day out basis. So part of this is how many of you, if just show of hands, how many of you are solopreneurs or what I would call in a partnership, where you have 3 or 4 or less of you that work as a group? Okay, quite a few of you. How many of you have worked in corporate environment in your career, where you work for the Fortune 2000 or whatever at some portion of your career? Okay, that's good to see. And how many of you have completed a financial plan, a business plan, or a strategic plan, whether it was in your corporate life or whether it was in your current small business activity? How many of you at least put those things together where you spent many hours putting a financial plan or a business plan? As a small business owner, you might put a business plan together for funding or just to give yourself a sense of direction. But show of hands on that as well. Okay, good. Because it's really important that when we talk about this, that you have some experience on this. And as we're going to talk a little bit about, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So an African proverb, and what I'm going to talk about here is, even if you're a solopreneur, if you are alone in your office, like I'm sitting in my converted bedroom office this morning, as a solopreneur, you rarely truly are in business by yourself. You have referral partners, you have strategic partners, and those people form a team. And a lot of planning, if you share your planning with your team, it can have dramatic impact on how your business does. And we're going to talk about that as we go through. Much of what we do, there are many choices that we make. So we make choices in small business about who we take on as clients. Some of you may make choices about who your employees are. And what we're going to talk about a little bit today is, what about your strategic partners? We always talk about clients being A, B, C, D clients. Well, I say you have A, B, C, D employees, you have A, B, C, D strategic partners, because communication and goals and expectations, how might I help you? Come about. So it's a two-way street, and we have lots of choices to make as we go forward. Relationships matter. We heard about that this morning. So overall, you need to orchestrate your group, your team, even if that team is an informal team. Harmony in every area of life is important, and it's impossible. It's never achieved by accident. You need to take control and orchestrate. You need to lead. So this is a little background. This is pre-COVID. So this was our group. You see Jean Latou, who's here this morning. She was part of our group. This was an informal group that came together. We all had performance strategies business cards. And yet everybody here also had their own independent business. They had their own card. So we carried the performance strategy card. That was, we said, was the price of admission to get into this group, which you had to go spend $70 and get 1,000 business cards with performance strategies on it. And when appropriate, we all used that. So it made us appear as a much better group. We did some activities and some designing together, but in reality, we all had our own corporate identities as well. 9 of those 12 are really strategic partners, referral partners, and we used an office. Was available to all the members. We had about a 3,500 square foot office. So this is what it looked like. So this was us, 3 or 4 years ago, pre-COVID. We had a beautiful reception area, a nice conference room, had a big training room that held 40 people. And we had 6 offices that were available. So this was one of our pictures, 3 or 4 years ago. Well, today, here's performance strategies with COVID. So the one on the left, that was my office last night as I was working on getting some things done for today. And now the owner, or the founder of Performance Strategies, has now, just in the last couple of months, moved to Texas. So there's our Austin, Texas office, and this is the Orange County office. So pre and post-COVID, it has shifted pretty dramatically. Personally, over the last 15 years, I started out as the Saddleback Strategy Group. I did that for 3 years and did advising. Then I went into a franchise, Action Coach out of Las Vegas. So I was Action Coach of Orange County. Then I joined Will Robertson with Performance Strategies for the last 6 years. And a couple years ago, I developed Exit Plan of Orange County. And that's kind of been my progression over the last 16 years. So what I wanted to talk about today is, and especially when you talk about Exit Plan, even though I am Exit Plan of Orange County, I have a group of people that are the important part of what makes this happen. If you know anything about exit planning, no one person can do exit plans. Nobody knows everything there is to know at a very high level. So here you can see where the business coach is me, the business owner in the middle, and all these other 9 people I bring in are of 15 years of networking. These are the best people I know in relation to having people exit or transition their business from one generation to the next, or exit it as in sale or close it down. People that I bring in based on this. So right now, as we speak, I'm doing 2 exit plans, one in the San Joaquin Valley and one in Newport. And those 2 very different, but I'm bringing different pieces of this together for that expertise. I can't do it myself. I think many of us are like that. We are, even though you may say you're a solopreneur, you have strategic partners that allow you to excel. And it's important to have a plan that you share with these people. So my goal is to share with you some tools and an approach that you can use to create a strong team that is passionate about what they are doing, and that as a group, your informal group, that you're all rowing in the same direction and you're focused on what matters most. And this works whether you're a solo, whether you have 3 employees, or whether you have 2,000 employees. So part of this is, how do you get the best people? How do you find A players? And put that plan together with them, make sure they have all the resources they need, and get out of the way, and a team that does well and really are built with A players can really move mountains. So it applies to whether it's employees, clients, referral partners, or strategic partners. And one of the things I do with my clients, we not only talk about what's an ideal client, but we also talk about what's an ideal employee. And we force rank all the employees. And what you do by doing this is make that person think about each person individually and where they are and how they contribute and how good they are at what they do. And when you force rank and there's no ties, so if you have 50 employees, you have a 50th, you have a first, you have a 50th. It makes them really look at it and who's contributing and where are your weak links. With a product or a service that solves a problem for which the customers are willing to pay, or spend their time. And Larry O'Toole has been here. I believe he's been a speaker, Bill. But I was talking to Larry a couple of weeks ago, and he made what I thought was and I wrote it down. In fact, I still have the Post-it from when I was talking to him. And his point was, what question do you answer? So as a service provider or as a product, what question do you answer? And I just thought when he said that, I actually stopped him and I thought about it and I said, what a great way to look at how we provide services or products to the people in our network and how well we do that. Productivity, and make sure you have all the tools and the people and properly trained so that you can be as efficient as possible in delivering your product or service. I tell my clients that as an owner, you have 2 overarching responsibilities. One, to hire the very best people that are available. And by that, I mean, not the best people in the litter. So if you go out and do, go through, we have a couple people that will help you find the best resources that are on the call today. But if you go out and you go through search and you get 50 resumes and you cull down to 15 and you do phone interviews with 15 and you have 5 or 6 that come to the office and they do interviews and you're looking for that, you don't take the best of those 6. The idea is you define what you need and you find that person. So after that first sweep, those 5 or 6 people, nobody meets what your criteria is as an A player in that job, then you throw a new net and you go at it again. But you don't just take the best of the litter. That's a very tough way to go about it. And the second piece beyond hiring the best people is you have to enable. And I say enable is a really important word. You have to enable your people to be successful. So as you're going through this and you're communicating, you're constantly saying, what is it you need to do your job better? Well, I need this software. I need this upgrade. I need this. Well, once you provide those things and they say, I have it all, then you should just be flying. If you have everything you need and I've enabled you to be successful, then as they say, go forth and prosper. And it works that way. What about profits? In the old world, in the old corporate world, quarterly returns, annual returns, shareholder value, all those things you're talking about all the time. Is profit king? Is profit the end result? Is it the goal that we all strive for? And so here are what matters most. And this was, I say, in 2005, my last year in corporate America, based on the first 30 years of my business experience, I rated each of these as equal. I needed to have great people. I needed to be supporting a great product. As somebody in operations, I needed to be able to, go through and have high productivity. And I made to make sure, obviously, I was working for somebody that was making money. So in 2006, when I went into being a small business owner, this got turned upside down. And I started working with small businesses and was working with a company with 70 people. And during the evaluation process, I talked to them about a strategic plan, and I started going through this and working them through a plan and making sure that the plan was first class. I took ended up with a 32-page document and took the people out for a 4-day offsite. We went through all this stuff. Well, lo and behold, when I got back from this 4-day offsite, I asked people, what's the vision? What's the mission? What are our values? They couldn't really, repeat it, even though we went through all that. So it was very difficult for me to go from the corporate environment to a small business environment. And it's important to know that that's not the way that it ends up. In small business, you need to be articulate. We talk all the time about clarity, simplicity, so it's not your first activity in doing this. So here's sorry for bouncing back and forth here. So how does this help me run the business? That's what most small business owners want to go through. They say, if I'm going to do a plan, how does that help me? So it really becomes down to being able to say, most people don't understand strategic planning. They just understand the passion and the bringing clarity to your employees and tying the plan to the day-to-day activities. It's important that you bring those two things together. So when you look at it from a corporate side, this is where this comes to be. When you first talk about the strategy, it's the owner that understands. Maybe they're passionate. Maybe one or two other people get it. But now you look at engagement. You hear that a lot in today's environment. What is the engagement of people? Whether you're a solopreneur with your team that help you get your activities done, or whether you're in a small business, engagement is where we need to get to. So you need to determine what is the engagement of what those people are doing, and they aren't aligned. So the next piece, when you go through this, you say, okay, I got a couple people that understand where we're going a year or 3 years from now. Now you talk about where, and Bill, if you've talked to Bill individually, he'll tell you all the time about all the people that are disconnected, the people that hate what they're doing, they want to move on. So the Gallup, talked about in 2019 in a 70-person company, they found that the U.S. workforce, 20% are miserable at what they're doing. I can't imagine going to work every day and being miserable. I've never experienced that. But they don't like their job. They don't. And what's happening during COVID to this? These people aren't moving. They stay. They're staying where they're at. And after that 20%, then you have another 50% that are basically apathetic. And when you have to look at your team, you have to look at the people that are working with you. Do you have people that are motivated and engaged, or do you have people that aren't doing everything they can to be part of your team? And then the last group, the inspired 30%. So it's here, the owner, a couple key people, and a few people sprinkled through the group are really inspired. And it's just astounding to me that people have groups like this, and they've gone on this for years. As I say, owners tend to do things in the aggregate. So they talk about what the sales were for last month. They don't talk about who their top 5 customers were. They don't talk about loss of sales and revenue. They just look at it in the aggregate. By looking at it at the detail, you really see a completely different picture. So here's where things are when I generally start with clients. This is the way when you start with your strategic partners or your referral partners. Where are they? Do you have 30% inspired, 50% apathetic, 20% miserable? Really, really tough if you're starting out with a group like that to look at them individually, see where they are, who's rowing in the right direction, who's sitting there for the ride. And every business or every group always has 1 or 2 people that are rowing in the wrong direction. So anyway, so when I went through this with this small company, I took a 32-page plan and brought it down to 7. I thought, okay, they can explain that. Well, as it turned out, it went from a book to pages. And what it really had to be is I needed to get it down to 1 page. So how do you end up with a strategic plan that is 1 page that people can get their head and their heart around? And that became the big piece. So by doing that, I was able to go from this 30, 50, 20 piece where I at least got the miserable index out and got those people out and brought in, either converted or brought in. So at least I have 50% of my group that's going in the right direction. So after doing this and now being in small business, what matters most now? Well, the single biggest thing with small business, and I would suggest to solopreneurs, is engage.
Let's get an X-ray.
Who are you using on your team, whether they're referral partners or strategic partners, to work with you on how you do your business? Product, productivity, and profits, of course, they're important. But there's nothing more important than the relationships. And we were talking about the Dalio book this morning. The relationships are more important because those are what are really going to move your business. So, relationships are where it's at. You can kind of see where this takes people and what goes on. The other things are important, but it's not the end all. I have a couple places. If anybody has a question so far, if you have something that you'd like to get clarity on, otherwise I'm going to move on and we'll maybe take some questions at the very end.
Okay, are we ready for questions?
Okay. All right. Silence is golden. So the key points to what we're doing, simple meaning, simple messages. What is it that we're doing? We want people that work together and they want to be, most of us want to be belong to something that's bigger than ourselves. And it's important. So that's the reason I think having referral partners and strategic partners really brings that ability to do that. If you enjoy that in corporate America, it's a way to bring that same type of feeling. There's nothing better than sitting around a table with 7 or 8 people that you absolutely have great respect for, and they're wonderful in their field, and you as a group are helping small business owners. It's really a very enjoyable feeling. And getting excited and knowing that you make a difference. People often ask me why I do business coaching. And I say, because about the 5th or 6th month, they look at me. At first, they're very tentative and they're wondering, is this another consultant I'm going to waste my money on, blah, blah, blah. Well, after 4 or 5 or 6 months, I invariably get this thing where we go to a weekly meeting and they sit down and they go, where were you 10 years ago? And I go, I was right here. But it's the fact that, they get excited knowing that they're making a difference, that they've been able to do things that they've never done before. And a lot of that comes around planning. It's kind of a brought out to them in a small, in a soft way. You don't hit them over the head with it. But people, as I say, owners, historically, the owners I've worked with for 16 years. And on one hand, I can tell you the number of owners I've met that this is not true of, but they're horrible at time management, accountability, and planning. They just don't do it. They're so eyeball deep in their business, they spend almost no time working on their business. And then we have the engagement statistics, and we really want to be able to determine who is and who isn't, and recognize that all businesses, or even the relationships that we do, how underutilized are they? You can't invest and 50 relationships in your business. You can invest and really focus on a dozen or maybe even less, but you need to be able to put those things together. And the fact that many of us don't use leadership tools that are available for small business. So engagement of your team means alignment, and it equals results. And at the end, I'm going to share with you kind of how I've done this with my strategic partners. So what are the challenges today? Engagement is needed. We get that in business, but let's talk about the other ways that we can do this. Traditional planning, people feel it's confusing, that it's expensive, that it just becomes books that you put on the shelf and nobody ever looks at. It shouldn't be that way. It should be simple. It should be understandable. And, it shouldn't be, as it says here, it should not be a sea of distractions that pull you away from doing it. If you do it, you don't get value from it, then why do it? But if you do it and you stay focused and you bring clarity to where you're going and you share that, then people will really step up and they will support you. One of the pieces that comes up, and I do this with new clients all the time, if they have 4 or 5 or 6, and this is a good example with a group, and you could do this. I'm going to share with you how I did this on January 14th with my strategic partners. Is you sit down and you ask them within a corporation. This is the perfect time of year to be doing this. Is you go and you say the CEO and their direct reports. You have 5 or 6 people in the room. Spread them out. And I say, okay, I want each of you on a blank piece of paper. I want you to write down in order the top 3 goals for this company for this year. And what happens is before you get in and you talk to these people about alignment and you say, how well aligned do you think you are? Well, most of the time it ends up being about 65%. They think they're quite aligned. They think they understand what they're doing. But with a little information, what I found out is less than 5%. Oftentimes it's 2 or 3% are in alignment on where they think they're going, which is frightening when you talk about businesses. So, and many times, the value of the proposition becomes an issue. So the speed of business, these are things, or almost black swan events anymore. Customer expectations of delivery and service and response continue to increase at an ever increasing rate, kind of the future shock type, Alvin Toffler type thing, where things are just on a hockey stick and they're not slowing down. Your customers, whether it's fair or not, they are comparing you to companies like Amazon or Apple or even Zappos. People that have just taken off, and their delivery and distribution capabilities are unbelievable. Same day delivery. I don't even go to the grocery store anymore for coffee for the Keurig. This afternoon, I'll put it in an order and I'll get my box tomorrow from Amazon, and it's less than I pay at the grocery store, and it's on my front porch. Now, you can say COVID brought me around, as so many did. I know a couple of our slides and past presentations focused on the adoption rate because of COVID, of people doing online ordering. It has been incredible. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been one of those people if it hadn't been for COVID. So it's amazing what some of these things are doing. And those, a change in retail, we've lost major retailers because people just do it online. You don't go to a store anymore. Once they lose 20 or 30% of their sales, they can't recover from that because of bricks and mortar. They don't have the opportunity. So challenges, this is what we're really about. 70% of our people are not engaged. They make no link. As a business, we don't make a link between what they do every day and where you see the company going 1 to 2 to 3 years out. And there's just so much out there, they just get lost in the sea of information. And these are the people that have kind of given you the opportunity to go through that. I'm going to skip questions right now, and we'll keep going through this. I use a software called Lead with Purpose with my clients. And this brings these things with shared vision, values, and goals at a very simple rate. But again, this is communication. And we talked about that, and engagement. You've got to get people engaged. When I look at this, it brings better alignment. It gives everybody what they're doing. They understand what their roles are and how they can help the overall team. Part of this is because they're aligned, they get better results. You don't have people feeling like they're in their cube, and when something comes in, they process it and it goes out, and they don't know where it came from. They don't know where it's going. They just do their job. I often get asked about goals. How many goals should a company have, a small business? And I say, you go into your break room and you put the goals up on the wall. What's your number one goal? You put that up. If you have 70 employees, how many of those 70 employees have line of sight to that goal? Then you okay, 50. It's a sales goal. Everybody affects goal. Then you do another one. You do another one. When every employee can come in and sit down in the break room and look at your list of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 goals, when they all can say, I have line of sight to goal number 4, they have to have line of sight to one of the goals the company's working on, then they're engaged because now they're helping the company reach those goals. That's how many goals you need. You know, it's not a fixed number, and not looking for a fixed number. So collectively, people solve problems. I always say, if you have a problem, as an owner, don't solve it yourself. Ask the people closest to the problem. When I was in distribution, I always say, talk to the people in receiving and talk to the truck drivers. They know everything about the customer. They know everything about our service. They know everything about our fill rate. Those are the people that know because they're hearing it when they deliver it, or they see it when they're putting receiving and then looking at back orders. They know what's going on. So what is it that with more confidence, you have a strong group that's engaged and that knows the priorities of what they're working for, then decisions are made around values, and the values everybody is part of. Values become part of your interviewing process. You can have harmony and feel more confident when you get these things aligned and everybody's rowing in the right direction. And what does that lead to? Better results. And that's what we're here for. And the experience has shown that long-term sustainable companies require the proper balance, like you have here, between management and leadership. I have a little blog article that I wrote years ago about the difference between management and leadership. And so often I go in and talk to owners and they use them interchangeably. They use leadership and management. I said, no, they're completely different philosophies. You lead people, you manage process. And it's important to make sure that you know what those things are. And part of this really has to do, leadership is strategic and longer term, and management is tactical and shorter term. And it's important that they understand their roles in both of those. So what is your inspiring story? What are you doing and how do you lead people? And you use specific goals and actions, and that's where the management side comes in. So you took the things that you're doing day in and day out, and you make sure that these things are absolutely going to the top. And what is your dream, and what is your inspiration that you get people to be a part of something bigger than themselves? And you go through all these activities. I'm not going to walk through these one at a time right now. But this is the process I take small businesses through. And as I get to the end of this, you're going to see this is what I did with my strategic partners just 10 days ago. So this is what this one-page plan looks like. So I went from 37 pages to 7 pages to 1 page and said, now, what's my brand purpose? What is my reason for being, so to speak? What is my blue sky vision? Where do I want this to be in 10 years? Then I actually do not 5 years, but 3-year goals. Most business owners have a hard time even with 5-year goals, but they're all interconnected. And that's the reason that we go through this. So what I did on the 14th at the Yard House, not too far from here, over the holidays, I reviewed the metrics of my business, of my coaching business. And during that time, I recognized that I had made 97 referrals. I do average usually 120 to 140 referrals a year, partially because of COVID and partially because I was focused on exit planning for part of 21. But I ended up with 97, which was the lowest I've been in 5 or 6 years. So I had 97 referrals that I gave to 28 different referral partners. And of those, I had 7 strategic partners that had 5 or more referrals during the course of the year. I invited those 5 people to review 21 and to forecast 22 at the Yard House on January 14th. One of them couldn't attend because her husband had COVID, so she didn't feel she should join us, and I appreciate that. And then I went over what my goals are, 11 goals that I have for 22, both personal and business, and explained what those goals were. I talked about the successes and shortcomings of last year, of 21. I asked them for their feedback, which they were very forthcoming and gave me 2 pages of feedback. And then I also said, how might I help you? So what can I do for you other than give you referrals and you help my clients? But of the 97 referrals that I gave last year, 86% of those referrals were successful, meaning that person was brought in and they ended up getting paid. And so since I had that meeting on the 14th, I've gotten 4 referrals from my 6 partners, or 7 actually. One of them did come from the person that couldn't attend. And that's what this ended up being. So by me being a solopreneur, by me always doing an annual financial plan and a strategic plan for my business, which I update quarterly and have it in a binder, but I look at it every Friday afternoon. And looking at this and sharing this with the people that help my business be successful. But in coaching and in exit planning, I can't do almost any of this by myself. I have to have people that come in and solve problems. That to me is what a referral is for. I help the owner uncover, or the person uncover, an issue. We flush it out. We put parameters around it. And then generally speaking, if they don't have the internal resources, I bring a 5-star partner to come in and solve that issue. I say I'm an 8 out of 10 as a business coach. The people I bring in as referral partners are 9s and 10s. Those are the people that I bring in that elevate me in the face of my clients, and that's why it's there.